Hello, I am Umbrenero and welcome back to Umbrenero is Life. Today's video is holiday baking. This year, for doing some holiday baking, I decided to do a few different types of cookies, and this is kind of the process I went to make them. So I didn't think this all the way through when I started making cookies this year, and I just started doing everything by hand and thinking, oh, this will work great. And I tried using a whisk, and I was having an off year when it came to making my first batch of cookies here, which were sugar cookies. And if I would have used our mixer, it would have been so much easier for all of the batches, but I was just trying to get these done and get the doughs ready to go and all of that. So I ended up mixing these all by hand. But yeah, this is a sugar cookie recipe I found, and every year I like to do the cutout cookies and all of that, and I don't end up showing the process of the cutouts because I was getting so far behind with actually baking that I forgot to turn the camera back on for all that, but I do show you at the end how all of the cookies came out. So here I was creaming the butter, vanilla, eggs, and sugar, getting it all nice and incorporated, and then I started adding the flour because I didn't want it over mixed, even though I think that did happen a little bit because I was doing all of the mixing by hand, but it's the things you learn as you're going. So I just kept on going here, and I did the sugar cookies first because that dough needed to sit for a couple hours before rolling out, cutting them out, and baking them. So I was thinking, well, if this is chilling, waiting in the fridge, in between me making all of the other doughs, it would work. But it was around here when I started thinking, something just doesn't seem right with this dough. I should have trusted my gut because of how powdery it was, but you live and you learn. And I got to the point where it's like, I'm gonna hand knead this and try to incorporate all the flour, but yeah, I made mistakes. And I fully admit I made these mistakes. So I kept going until it was mostly all together, and then I ended up grabbing some plastic wrap here, put the dough on it, just so that way I could wrap it up and put it in the fridge for a couple hours. So the next cookie dough I ended up making was a peanut butter cookie. But first, I took all of my dry ingredients and just mixed them together so that way everything was incorporated, so there wasn't a spot that was strictly baking powder or salt. But here, I mixed together the butter, peanut butter, and the sugar, the egg, just so that way all of the wets were creamed together the best that I could. And again, I should have used our mixer, but that was something I realized afterwards. But once all of my wet ingredients were incorporated here, it was just adding the flour, baking soda, baking powder mix. So it's a very simple peanut butter cookie recipe. It's one that just brings back lots of memories, so it's just one that is a classic to make. And I do chill my peanut butter cookies before I actually bake them, because I have found that sometimes if I just make the dough and then bake immediately after, they dissolve too much. So I wanted it to firm up a little bit just before cooking, so that way they didn't break or become powder too quickly. So again, I took out some plastic wrap, plopped my dough on it, and rolled it up to put in the fridge for a bit while I was making the next dough. And the next one is chocolate chip cookies, which, as of the day of recording this, these cookies have been gone already for a couple days. Like, my husband went through these very quickly. So, first things first, mix together the dry ingredients so that way you didn't get a glob of salt in one cookie or whatever, which has happened. But I then started creaming my butter and sugar together. And this is a recipe I know I can do by hand because it has turned out by hand before. But quickly started with this and just getting everything all creamed together. With that done, it was time to start adding eggs. And you can sometimes alternate between egg, flour, but I just went egg, mixed it in, then did the next egg, just so that way they were all done. But it's up to you how you really do it. And then it was mixing in the flour mixture, and yeah, this one turned out probably the best out of the 3 batches. So it is what it is. But with the first part of the flour mostly mixed in here, it was time to add the rest of it. And my chocolate chip cookie dough is usually a very soft dough for when I am baking it and putting it on the baking sheets. So for me, this was at a good consistency, and it was really where I needed it to be once it was all mixed together. And then the last step is adding the chocolate chips, which some people will use mini or some will use just a certain amount. I just dump the entire bag in and say that's good enough. And my husband doesn't complain when I do that. So that was it for the 3 doughs. And this is how they all turned out. There were a couple other cookies I did off camera, but it is what it is. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I am Umbrenero. Bye!